have a student explain how to make makers. We have Nick Brocchini here.
Hi, I'm Nick Brocchini. I'm 16 years old. I'm a junior at local Winning High School in San Francisco. And I've been making seriously for about the past 10 years, since I was 6 years old. And in the past few years, I've also been actually lucky enough to begin working with some younger kids and helping them develop their maker sensibilities and take their first maker journeys. So I began making in 2005 when I went to the first ever tinkering school camp run by Gaver Tully, who's in the center there, his backyard. That's me there, not looking at the camera per the usual. And it was really a fantastic building experience for me. We built a roller coaster that you can see there that both the kids and the adults could actually get into and ride down a hill. And from that point on, I was pretty much hooked. I've been making pretty constantly since then. But I think it's important to note that I was not actually a natural-born tinkerer or maker of any sort. I was not, I was pretty uncoordinated. I had bad fine motor skills, and I was very easily distractible, which, I don't know, some people might be able to empathize with. And so I would often wander away from the project and end up reading my book, like you can see there, or looking at a plant. But I was really lucky to have the excellent mentorship of Gaver Tully, who stuck with me through the years and kept me excited about making and engaged in learning. And he actually, got me to the point where over the past few years I've been working as a collaborator at Tinkering School and helping to work with younger kids at both overnight camp and day camp, as well as the after-school program. And actually, let me just see, how many of you guys out there are teachers? And how many are parents? I mean, bravo to you, because I did not realize this is a camper, but working with little kids turns out to be really hard. And, so over the past couple years as I've been doing this, I've spent a lot of time thinking about how I can best serve young makers and how I can make making into something that kids continue to want to pursue. And I'm gonna share a brief anecdote from last summer, which opened my eyes to some new ways of thinking about that. So last summer I was working at Tinkering School Day Camp, and the theme of the week was obstacle course. And my group of 8 or 9 kids from ages 6 to 8 got together. We sat down in a circle and we just talked about what obstacle we wanted to contribute to the obstacle course. And they decided they wanted to build a spider hill, which would essentially be a wooden hill with a rope webbing that they could climb up, and then we'd meet up on the other side with the rock wall team and they'd be able to go down. And so we started building it, and they were really excited about it. They were drilling holes, and I was showing them how to think about sturdy structures. It was really actually just fantastic, I think, both for me and the kids. But on Thursday afternoon I was looking at it, and another collaborator said to me, if we don't finish the main wooden body by the end of today, we're not going to have this project be finished by the end of camp this week. And that kind of freaked me out, and I sort of stepped outside of the role I had set for myself as a collaborator and back into the role that I had occupied as a camper as a younger kid. And I stopped trying to show people how to drill and started just drilling, and I stopped trying to show kids how to tie knots that were difficult for them and started just doing it for them. And the next day I realized, there's a lot of rope webbing. Another junior collaborator and I realized that those kids just weren't going to be able to get it up in time. And so we ended up, while they went to the park and played, we put that up, and it was, not totally done, but almost done by the time they came back. And, they were actually pretty happy. When the parents got there, they were happy with their kids' experience, but I had to wonder, for myself, had I been helping too much? Because, one of the big things that we worry about when we're trying to educate makers or teach tinkering is fostering independence. You want to, a big part of being able to make things is feeling empowered and feeling empowered to take on challenges by yourself. And so I wondered, by stepping in and, using all of my abilities, did I reduce their chance to explore their abilities? And, again, in Silicon Valley we talk a lot about failure and how failure is a really positive experience. And I wondered, had I stolen their failure, would not finishing on time have been a more valuable learning experience than potentially, you know, the transient joy of having a completed and finished project. And so as I was thinking about this and kind of meditating over the weeks that followed that incident, I was thinking about, you know, I started trying to think, you know, what did kids actually respond well to? And, you know, not what I thought they would respond well to, and what had been fantastic moments of learning for me as a young tinkerer, and what did the great collaborators I had worked with done. And I realized that for any kid, when they're approaching a new project, there's really only 3 types of things they have to deal with. And I don't know, this kind of reshaped the way I think about working with kids, and hopefully it's a useful insight for you. The first thing they run into are things they can do. That's awesome. It really depends what they are from, you know, what those things are vary from kid to kid. For a really little kid, it might be something as simple as counting. They can count out 8 screws for the project. For other kids, it might be something like using a ruler, or learning how to use, or using, you know, basic tools, or using a screwdriver. After that, there's things that they can learn to do. Those might be things like tying a knot or learning to lash. There's a photo of me as a kid cutting with a box cutter. It's amazing how many kids instinctively want to cut towards their own hands or towards their body. But once you tell them how to do things safely, they can just do it. And then finally, there's things that they really can't do alone, whether it's because they're not safe, or because they're not tall, strong, or coordinated enough, or because if they can do it, but they're so bad at doing it that they'd be too slow, they'd get bored and they'd quit the project. And that's actually, I think, more destructive than never having started the project at all, because suddenly the kid has the idea in their head that making is something that ends in boredom, and also projects never get finished. And so I was really thinking, you know, how as a collaborator, how as someone who's working with kids, can I navigate this space effectively, and can we all navigate this space effectively when we're working with kids to serve a young maker well? What I realized is that, you know, for the things they can do, it's really important to give them independence and to trust them to do those things. Everyone wants to feel competent and like they're able. And so if a kid, even if it's all they can do is just counting screws, let them count out those screws and have something that they really own as their part of the project. Because when you kind of step into something that they do feel comfortable with, you're showing the kid that they're not competent. Then with the things they can learn to do, help them to learn, because then just turn those things into the first set of things they can do, and that makes them more and more able for the future. And then finally, for the things that they can't do alone, this is the thing that was toughest for me. You really don't have to be afraid of just stepping in and helping, because, you know, my instinct is to kind of step back and really try and let the kids struggle and see if they can overcome. But there's certain types of challenges where that's not productive. If I have a 3.5-foot tall kid and they need to put a rope through a 5.5-foot tall hole, it's okay for me just to take the rope and put it through and tie it off. And so, you know, that's after I was thinking about this, that's when I kind of realized the genius of the word collaborator. Because to be effective at teaching young kids, I found you really do have to collaborate. To get them to feel ownership and engagement, the surest way to do that is to model those things in yourself, and to kind of put both feet in the water and be actively participating in the project even as they are. Because, you know, as makers, we know that feeling excited about a project is a fantastic feeling. But little kids who have never built a project don't know that, so you have to show them that it's something worth moving towards. Another thing that I found is really useful is letting the kid teach you something that they've learned, or teach a sibling or a classmate something that they've learned, because that, again, shows them that they are valuable, they have skills that are valuable, and they can contribute something valuable to other kids and to other students and to their project. And so I guess I was trying to think of a way that I could wrap all these ideas up into one thing that I could easily refer to when working with kids, and it might be useful to other people. And I realized that one's role as an educator is essentially that of a guide dog. The guide dog here is not telling this guy what to do. All it's doing is helping him. And that's what I've come to see as my role. That's what I've realized that kids want from, you know, a teacher or an educator is, you know, they want help and support. with things that they can't do, or even things that are just very difficult for them to do. Because, you know, I'm sure this guy, if you gave him enough time, could open this door. But it's a lot easier and less painful and faster if he has the dog do it for him. And especially when you're working with young kids who are on their first or second or third maker project, you really want to grease the skids and just make things run smoothly. And so, but as a human service animal, you also have some opportunities that this guide dog does not. You can say, you know, for example, sometimes you'll see a kid doing something and you'll have an idea about how they can do it better. My urge is sometimes just to tell the kid, you know, actually we're not doing this, let's do something else. I found that to not be that productive, as some of you may have as well. So I try to give them the idea without the expectation that they're gonna run with it. I give them the information, which they really do want, because if they're feeling uncomfortable in a certain situation, they're not sure how to proceed, they do want more information. But I try not to give them information with an expectation. So I share, but I try not to instruct. And, you know, I found tinkering and, you know, maker skills to be hugely valuable for me as I've been growing up. It's given me the confidence to interact with the world in ways where I'm not sure what the end result is going to be, and it's also kind of let me trust myself to learn new skills quickly, and that's let me, you know, explore, you know, things like woodshop. I took up beekeeping as a hobby. I've been trying to make sourdough bread, and even, you know, for a little kid, things like just asking to take out your own splinter instead of having a parent do it for you. You know, that is a step towards independence, and I feel like having a nurturing, tinkering environment as a young person is a hugely valuable asset on the journey towards becoming a competent and happy adult. So huge thanks to Tinkering School. The program's definitely changed my life. They have summer camp, an after-school program, weekend workshops. I work at all of them from time to time, or volunteer. Thanks to Brightworks, which is the school that hosts Tinkering School day camp and after school, where I've spent a ton of time. And also, I'd just like to mention Gaber's latest project, which I've been helping with, something called Tinkering Labs, which is a kit that creates an opportunity for open-ended learning, and is a great way for, you know, people who are trying to get their kids to start doing maker-type things, to dip their toes in the water. Thanks so much for your time. Do you guys have any questions? So the question was, have I encountered kids that give up on their projects, and what do I do to motivate them? And it's definitely, especially with little kids, they sometimes get discouraged easily. The biggest thing I would say is that I really try to avoid coercing a kid back into doing a project. If they need to take a break and go eat some fruit, or, you know, play with paint for a while, I really try to let them do that and give them some time to get their energy back, because kids run out of energy quickly, which is something I often forget. And I think that, you know, if they have a project that they've been working on, like a swing, for example, and they stop working on it, there's a couple reasons why that could be. One is they just decide they don't actually want to swing. And if that's the case, then I think that's just one battle that you have to let go. But in other cases, it could be they hit a point in the construction where they really aren't feeling comfortable, or feeling like they know where they're going from there. And especially, you know, for little kids who've been going, or for kids who've been going to school for a couple of years, they really are looking for the next set of instructions. And when those aren't there, sometimes they can feel intimidated, and they can decide that, hey, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And if they hit that stumbling block, I think it's really key as a, you know, service animal to be there to kind of support them, see what's making them uncomfortable, and either, you know, gently guide them through that step, or if there's a later step that they're excited about, I think it's actually okay to just do the step that they're uncomfortable with, get them to the part of the project that they're excited about. Does that answer your question? Hi.
Like my kids are a little older than that. They take on a
That's a great question. So the question was, what do you do when you don't know what the next step in a project is? For example, with an Arduino project, I'm not super, I've done a little bit of Arduino stuff, but I'm definitely a novice. What would you do if a kid hit a wall where you didn't know how to help them advance through? And I think that that's definitely a tricky situation. There's not an easy answer, but what I would say is that you as an adult still do have skills that are useful in this scenario. There's, understanding how to effectively research a question is something, it's not a skill that we think about a lot, especially with little kids, but it's something that can be hugely helpful. Or the skill, or even the ability to just think of reaching out to someone who knows more than you do. Kids don't think of that. And I know just being encouraged, when I was working on various projects where my parents didn't know how to actually help me, they did encourage me to just reach out to people who would know how to fix those things. And even though I was kind of hesitant to do it at first, it definitely made a big difference in the success rate of my projects. Anything else? All right.
My question is around how do you follow up? So kids usually go to these camps, they get kind of excited, they do something. With a lot of these things, practices can watch these progress. So what resources does tinkering school or tinkering labs for them to continue to build on what they can learn?
So the question was, how, once you've completed a summer camp or something of the sort, how do you continue to build on those skills? And how do you not kind of have that be a one-time thing, but something that continues to grow? And that's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I don't have a tried and true answer for you, because there's a lot of different shapes and forms that could take. What I would do is probably just after a kid finishes to ask them, what do you want to build now? What do you feel like, what's a project where you feel like you know how to do most of it, but not all of it, and there's something more that you'd like to learn, and see if you can kind of facilitate that project. Because especially when kids are young, it's not that they don't want to take initiative, it's that they're not used to taking initiative, and they're not really sure what the steps to starting on a project are. So I'd say, especially if they've had a positive experience at some sort of maker camp, they're going to want to keep building. And it's really just making that first step of kind of getting that activation energy to start on a new project that's hard for them. So facilitating that step and making it as easy as possible for them to go to the hardware store, or to figure out what their plan is and their parts list is, or even just to decide one day, I want to make something and this is what it is the most crucial thing. Does that answer your question? Right on. Anyone else? All right. I guess that's the end. I'm not, do I get this mic back? Thank you guys so much.